Hi, and welcome to this lecture on where we're going to be setting up our own development environment on our PC. So, as I mentioned earlier on the previous lecture, we can't actually code large software projects on the terminal. So, we actually need a code editor. And a code editor is a tool that is used to write and edit code. They are usually lightweight and can be great for learning. However, once a program gets larger, then you actually need to test and debug your code, and this is where the IDEs come in. An IDE is the short acronym for Integrated Development Environment because it understands your code much better than a code editor. However, it usually provides features such as build automation, code linting, testing, and debugging. So, using the IDE can significantly speed up your work and development, but the downside is that IDEs can be complicated to use. So, some of the few examples of code editors are VS Code, Notepad, and Sublime Text. On the IDEs, the most popular IDE for running Python is the PyCharm and Jupyter, which is mostly used by data scientists and machine learning practitioners. But for this course, we're going to be using the VS Code editor to run our Python code because I'm going to show you how you can convert VS Code editor to a powerful IDE which provides wonderful features such as intelligent code completion, linting for potential errors, debugging, unit testing, and so on. So, what I need you to do is to head over to code.visualstudio.com, then download Visual Studio Code Editor, and when it's done downloading, install on your operating system if you are on a Mac, Windows, or Linux. After the installation, open up your VS Code editor and open the Explorer tab here and click on the Open folder. So on my desktop, I'm going to create a new folder. Let's say Python programs, and then click on create. Then finally, I'm going to click on the open button here to open up the Python programs folder to my VS Code. And as you can see, we are on the programs folder. Then I'm going to create a new Python file called app.py and then click on enter. If you notice, VS Code added a small Python icon indicating that this is actually a Python program file. So now, all you need to do is to click on this icon. It's actually called the extension panel. Then we're going to search Python and then click to view the extension. So as I mentioned earlier, that I'm going to show you how you can convert VS Code editor into a powerful integrated development environment. So this Python extension provides us with features such as code linting for checking our source code for programmatic and stylistic errors, then debugging for identifying problems in our source code and determining a way to work around it. And we have code navigation and many more. So click on the install button here to download the extension to your VS Code, and when it's done installing, close the extension page. And now let's actually write and run our first Python program, starting by using the print function. Well, functions are code that tells Python to do something. You can use functions in your programs again and again as many times as you want because they are the one way to reuse code in programming. However, we always add double parentheses when we call functions in Python. And then in between the parentheses, we include double quotes. You may also use single quotations in between the parentheses. And finally, all we need to do is to pass in the message we're going to display on the screen, which I'm going to say, hello world. Then at the top right section here, I'm going to click on the run button to display my message. This is awesome, right? As you can see, the message hello world has been printed out on the console. And this is all we need to do to display a message on the screen in Python using the print function. However, this is not all we can do with the print function. We can also print out numbers, expressions, and so on. To illustrate, I will erase the hello world message with the quotations and pass in 4 multiplied by 3 and then click on the run button. As you can observe, 12 has been printed out on the console for us. So to recap, the print function displays output to the screen, which can be text, numbers, or even expressions. And later in the course, we will explore advanced features on how to use the print function to display information on the screen. So this wraps up our tutorial. And in the next lecture, we're going to learn about variables, which are the way of storing data in Python programs. For example, if you create a computer game, you actually need to track the player score, the number of lives the player has, and what level the player is on. Of course, all of this data changes as we play the game and as the software keeps running. So, as the programmer, where do you actually store all of this data and how do you keep track of it? Eventually, the Python programming language has a wonderful solution. You will store all of this data in variables. So, I'll see you in the next lecture. Stay tuned, and as always, take care.